James, a very warm welcome to the MotorMouth podcast. Now, let's go back a touch. We always like to understand where our guests have come from and what's shaped them into the individual that they are today. So take us back to early life. Where did you grow up? Where was home? What was life like for you as a child?
So I was born in the UK, but I don't remember a tremendous amount about it. I moved to Geneva, Switzerland. My father moved there for work, and I was quite young when that happened, and grew up really in Geneva. And had the fortune of going to a school where you sort of learnt French and English, and in fact Spanish at the same time. So you're just immersed in languages, which is quite good. So that was my childhood growing up. I would say all my family really remained out in Switzerland. It was only myself that came back. I really wanted to go back to, for university purposes, where I was born. The passport that I held was an English one. Make sure I came back and actually understood a little bit more about the country, and also at the time wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do in life, which we can go through in the second question. But motorsport was here, and ultimately that's what kept me here.
And where did that interest in motorsport first show itself?
I think like a number of individuals, I would watch it on a Sunday at home with friends and family around, and it would just be a sort of a really good way of spending the day. I admired the elite sport that it was. I admired the athletes that were the drivers as I was watching it. So remember, this is sort of the 90s going to late 90s. It was sort of the primary year I was watching. And so it was mainly a spectator more than anything else. I sort of dabbled in karting and enjoyed doing that recreationally. But fundamentally, I admired the sport. But at the time, didn't believe it was a career. In fact, truthfully, I didn't even realize that teams were hundreds of people. You sort of looked at the TV and went, that must be the team. There's about 50 there that will do the job. So I didn't really understand the background behind what made a Formula One team.
Now, you started your career with British American Racing in 2001 before it's moved to Honda Racing, Braun GP, and eventually Mercedes. And you've worked with the likes of Jenson Button, Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, and more. Before we come on to Williams, how do you look back on your path to Formula One? Did you ever have some sort of grand plan and think, one day I'm going to be a team principal? Or did it sort of more organically come about?
Certainly it wasn't going in here with the lofty aspirations of being a team principal. It was right at the beginning. So when I was back at university, I applied to all 11 teams, got rejected by all 11 teams, but I'm a persistent pain in the ass. And so that sort of made me want to be here even more and change my degree in order to finish that degree, did another degree in order to be able to have an opportunity to come here. And so aspiration number one was actually more, can I get into the sport? Let's make that the aspiration. It's joining a Formula One team. Then once I was there, the aspiration was, how do I make myself versed in a huge number of aspects of this team? So how do I learn about everything from vehicle dynamics to aero to performance to race engineering to software development to electronics? How do I make sure I'm engrossed in all those? And the answer to it was very simple. Teams at the time were very small. There were only about 250 people back in when I joined. Obviously nowadays we're over 1,000 typically for a large organization. And so as a result, you could do many jobs. You just had to work more hours, simple as that. And I had no issue doing that whatsoever at all. So aspiration number two was then actually move towards the race engineering side, towards the traveling side. Because the first job I had was really more a little bit of travel, but more based around the factory, trying to help vehicle dynamics, competitive performance, electronics, R&D, a bit of everything. Aspiration number two came about fairly quickly in 2002, which then led on to the next step of really what I wanted to do within the sport, which was strategy didn't exist in any sort of formal capacity. It was something that on a Saturday night we would discuss with the drivers and say, do you want a one stop? One stop, good. Two stop, good. Write that on a piece of paper. Let's get some dinner. And it just felt wrong. And obviously my background is mathematics and computer science. So I developed some, what are now basic, but at the time definitely were not. So the Monte Carlo strategies that we're sort of doing, instead of just an Excel spreadsheet, quick calculation on race time, doing 10,000 races to calculate what is optimum. Obviously these days we do millions and millions and millions, but I mean, it's evolved as everything has in our sport. And it evolved into that. So then my aspiration came, well, let's make what we do here within strategy the best in the pit lane. Let's make it effectively benchmark in this area. So that became the next aspiration. And there's a great thing with strategy, which is I did race engineering and test engineering at the same time. So we used to run 3 cars in 2004 and 2006, and I had the privilege of really working on one of those. Then in addition, we used to test between every race. So I used to go testing and then did young driver program testing as well. I enjoyed all of these things. There were great strings that you could add to your bow, and really enjoyed the connection with the driver, but felt very insular. When you're working with just one driver, you're missing half the picture, which is why strategy always pulled me along, because it was you're working with both drivers, and to a certain extent what happens for a couple of hours in qualifying in the race is down to what you decide. And I really enjoyed that aspect of things. So for a long period of time across Brawn and the early stage of Mercedes, very much that was an enjoyable moment. And as with everything, the role grows, and it grew out, and we did more and more and more as you're sort of getting the picture of how my career was. And the team principal element really only came about when Toto joined. Toto and I have, even today, just a really strong relationship, as you would imagine. And he sort of highlighted that is an aspirational goal, but a potential goal, and sort of helped me on the journey of what it takes to be there. Now, his role expanded and he grew out as well as a part of things. And as he did, I was able to take on a number of his responsibilities, which is what provided a pathway for me. But to be clear, it's an honor and a privilege being in this role. And it's not one that you can ever do any more than loosely hope for. Because it's a journey that is punishing, and not many get rewarded for it. But if you have fortune, you can make it.
You've obviously picked up a huge amount of skills in different areas of running a Formula One team, as you've just outlined there, whether it's strategy or engineering or, tech or whatever it might be. Do you think you can come in as a team principal without some of those things? Like if you're just a really good people person and you have a really good solid foundation in engineering, for example, can you be a team principal, or do you need that more well-rounded experience?
I think you hit the nail on the head. What is required, in my opinion, for being, and there's two very different types of team principal in the pit lane, and all of them successful. So I don't think there's any particular mold we all fit into. But in my opinion, being a great leader is really the crux of it. Being a great communicator is a large part of it as well. If you're a great leader, but you can't get your message across and you can't direct the organization in the right way, then it won't work fundamentally. And then I do believe you need to have a strong enough understanding of how businesses are run, from a finance HR background, from the structure underneath it all, because ultimately that is a core part of your role, including commercial side. And then the final element of things is, in my opinion, the engineering arm. Now, you can either have expertise that's above all others in how to run an organization, how to run a business, be a great leader and a great communicator, or you can be a strong engineering-led individual. And I think what you're seeing is a mixture in the pit lane. I mean, some of the most successful ones are obviously Christian and Toto, and they're in a situation where they don't have their engineering background, and yet we can't deny the success that they have behind them. The converse to it is we have Andrea and myself, I would say, that have a much stronger engineering side, but we have different strings to our bow. And I think the key behind it still comes back to being a strong leader in your respective discipline. If you're lacking the engineering side, you need to be supported by an engineering side that is strong enough to pull you through. If you're lacking the business side, you need a business structure around you and a commercial structure around you that's strong enough to fill in those voids. And so my opinion of it is there's no one mold. But I would say leadership and communication are definitely pillars required in this journey.
Now, many fans regarded you as the successor to Toto when you were at Mercedes. You decided in 2023 to move across to Williams as team principal. Was it a very difficult decision, or was it like, right, this is it, this is my opportunity to really make a difference and a project?
Neither of those two things. So what I mean by that is this. It wasn't about me sort of going, yep, this is my chance. It was more that winter I was fortunate. I had not one, but several opportunities to leave Williams and go into a team principal role as well. And so the consideration was, do I want to leave? Do I want to move on? And if I do, what's the right journey for me? And here's what happened. Williams met with a number of individuals. Actually, it was one meeting that really defined it. And the simple answer was this. Every time I challenged on it, we need to invest, we need to do this, we need to do these items, are you prepared to do it? The answer was yes. Every time, resolute, we want Williams back in a championship winning way, and we want to do what it takes. And the opportunity to take a brand like Williams, a history, a heritage like Williams, have the right investment behind it, have the right timeline as well. Every time we spoke about timeline, it was fully understood this will not be done in a year or 2 years. And when you have that disconnect, you have a problem because it doesn't matter what I do, we're not going to get there. We'll keep doing short-term fixes in order to try and follow a guideline that can't be hit. And this here was from the beginning. It was very clear. It is many, many years. It's a lot to rebuild and do, and that's okay. We want to bring this back to the front the right way. And that opportunity comes, in my opinion, once in a lifetime. So it was a hard decision because I'm leaving what I consider to be family, an environment I've been in for 23, 25 years. That was difficult. There's still many individuals there that I'll talk to weekly because they were part of my life for so many years. But it was an easy decision in as much as this won't come around, in my opinion, again. So grab it with both arms and embrace it and enjoy the challenge. So I guess hopefully, in summary, it wasn't that I was getting ahead of myself and thought, yes, this is my opportunity. It was more, I can't let this go.
Yeah. Now, we had Mark Gallagher on the show last week, who you're probably familiar with, and it was fascinating talking to him. And we mentioned you were coming on the show, and he had a question for you, which I'm going to fire at you now. And you talk about the timeline there, and it is a project at the moment. But what he asks, what is your non-negotiable deadline for Williams becoming a front runner in Formula One and no longer in a transitional phase?
I mean, it's rewording the question that always gets asked, which is when are you going to be winning again? But it's hard to answer the non-negotiable bit because every step of this journey, when we're starting to rebuild and laying foundations, we've suddenly found that underneath there is quicksand and you got to dig deeper and get on with it. And so the problem I have behind it is that I will not compromise the rebuilding of this organization. That's actually my hard line. My hard line is no shortcuts, no sticky plasters, do it properly in every sense of the word. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about structuring the building, layout of how we seat people to who should be here. And individuals, we announced a lot recently, but those individuals we've been waiting for 18 months. And by the way, that's not the end of the journey. We've got a ton more coming, but still going to be 12, 18 months away. I'm okay with that because finding the right people that fit in, that create the right infrastructure for the long term is the right thing to do. And so the hard line I have is actually more conversely, don't do anything that is a short-term fix that we're going to regret later, and make active decisions, get on with it. Let's not sit here and talk about how difficult it is. We're going to move on now. In terms of years, I mean, you have evidence up and down the grid. You've got McLaren at the moment that was 5 years rebuilding what they had, a little bit more than 5 years. It sort of tells you, and that was a very strong, successful organization more recently than Williams. These aren't organizations that you turn around overnight. You don't turn around 1,000 people into where we need to be. You don't build the infrastructure and requirements that quickly either. But that timeline should give you a guide as to where my sort of journey is and what the hard stops are as well. It's not a 1 year journey. And if we're still talking in 5 years and we haven't moved forward, I'll be awfully disappointed. But if in 3 years I can show you all the structures in place, the right people in place, the right investment, and really invested in the right things, then I can actually give you a fairly accurate deadline of where we're going to be successful.
Yeah. And in terms of that, getting the right people in the right places in the team, you're in the middle of somewhat of a recruitment drive. You've taken on 6 new technical leaders with a further 20 plus positions being filled. That's a real statement of intent. And I imagine many of these are relatively senior positions that will affect the team on track. What's the process in that recruitment drive to make sure that they're the right people being put into the right places and looking for the right fit? So I imagine you're looking for people that fit the culture as much as fit the job spec itself.
Yeah, exactly that. So if I summarize how I am as a human being, how you behave, what you think about, how you talk, how you discuss, how you communicate, is as important to me as your technical ability. And in fact, in grading, when you grade individuals here within this organization, that is how it's graded. So it's one of those things that, for me, the importance of this all is you have to fit the structure. If you have someone that is hyper intelligent but disruptive or toxic, you'll destroy the organization far, far quicker than the technical benefit that you'll gain from it. I've seen it time and time again. So that's really important to me. So in answer to your question, the bit I'm proud about is every single one of the individuals we're bringing on board and the new ones have basically passed, as you would normally expect, several interview stages. But one of them really is about who you are, your behaviors, your culture, your fit, what you believe in, why do you believe in it, how do you enforce that? And they're being employed by individuals within this organization that I trust as lieutenants because they have the same values and belief structure that I do as well at the same time. And that's how you effectively enforce it. There's plenty of intelligent people in the world. There's plenty of very intelligent people in Formula One. We're not short of that. But what I want is a structure that doesn't just work for 3 years. It's one that works for 10, 20 years. And to get that right, you've got to have the right mix. And that also includes individuals that are prepared to hire beneath them more intelligent people than they are. I've said it time and time again on every podcast. I'm not the most intelligent person in this organization by far. Certainly not the most intelligent person in the room normally as well. But I do know how to employ individuals that are intelligent, that know how to share that with others. And you want your succession to be better than you are. That's the key behind all of this. So employ in that regard and have people around you that employ in that regard. By the way, that doesn't make them bad individuals. They're strong leaders, which is why they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose Formula One, like you say, there's a lot of intelligent and very bright people in Formula One, but it's a relatively small pool when you think about the paddock. Do you ever, or are you currently looking outside of Formula One? Are there people from other sports or other industries that could add value?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the announcement we made was more senior personnel that are from Formula One because that resonates around, that's the story. But actually, I'm a firm believer in two things. One, investing in youth, so that's graduates and IPs. There are many of them joining every year. And that includes drivers as well, by the way. I was a graduate 25 years ago and I'm here today. If you have the right structure, the right people around you, and the right leaders that help you on the journey, you can do anything. That's my strong belief. The same applies to other industries. We're not the best industry in the world. I think we're very good at what we do. We can do engineering tasks in hours instead of years. That's the sort of timeline difference. But clever individuals that are in other industries can be trained to do that as well. What you need is the intelligent individuals that have the right background, that have the right mental acuity, that want to be in this environment, that relish this environment. That's the real key behind it. We're not 9 till 5. If that's what you're looking for, wrong business. This is about you use your passion to drive you because there's some dark days. And what pulls you through is the want and desire to be more successful than your competitors around you and the want and desire to be there tomorrow. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the right behaviors and characteristics and the intelligence that goes with it. And as I said, there's plenty in other industries. It's about tapping into it the right way. There's a different training regime that goes with it, but I'm a firm believer that that's the right way of building an organization.
And one of the people that fits really well into that organization is obviously Alex Albon. And we've chatted to Alex on this podcast, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times in a more sponsorship and commercial capacity for various brands. He's someone who's really impressed a lot of people with his speed and his attitude and the way he deals with your partners. First of all, what attributes do you see in Alex? And the question I've got to ask is, where are you with a partner for him in 2025 and beyond?
So first of all, I've had the pleasure of knowing Alex since 2016. It's the first time I started working with him. He had similar raw speed to George and Lando. They all raced together fundamentally. I would say Alex didn't have quite the same backing, be it financial or otherwise, into it, and certainly not the right support in terms of actually how to get the most out of an F2 car. He sort of made it up as he went along, but he did a great job with it. And so the raw speed was always there. I always knew it was there. I think in the right environment, and that's really important, he flies. if you create a pressure environment around him where he feels as though he's being pushed down, you don't get the best Alex. But for that matter, I don't know any driver that will thrive in that environment whatsoever at all. And my job is to make sure he understands that he has a place here, one of the great places here, and this is a great team, and we'll support him through and through. And that's why he and I have a strong relationship, because we've seen eye to eye. We've had a strong discussion over it. We understand where we want to be. I've shown him what we've got laid out as plans for the future and why I know this will be successful. And he wants to be a part of that journey. And again, what's really important there is that he wants to be a part of this journey. This isn't just that he had no options on the grid, quite the opposite. He had plenty. This is where he wants to be. So what I see in him is an individual who is only getting better. He's not getting worse. He's improving over time. He's coming up towards he believes it's the peak of his career. I don't. I think his peak will last 6 years from where it is today. It's not the last 2 years. And that's where he's here for. The next element of things with Alex is that he's helmet off, actually agreeable. He's very good at communicating. He's a very good leader. He came here and had a talk to the factory, and the war was sensational. The converse, though, is you put the helmet on and he goes into a serious competitor that won't take a millimetre of abuse from any other drivers on track. He knows how good he is, and he puts that to good work. So that's what I enjoy about him. A good leader in and out of the car. In terms of the second seat, it's what I'm trying to find and work on is someone that is able to push Alex in terms of performance, push the team in terms of performance. We have to be straightforward with ourselves. We need that. That is a part of what we require now. And as the team progresses, I need that to be pushing even harder as a result of it. So, what you can infer from this is fundamentally it's not just about performance, it's about experience as well. It's moving the team forward, and that's what I'm looking for. And where we are on that journey is I've sort of been open that there's a number of individuals. It is getting narrowed down. But one thing that's really important to me is I don't want an individual here just because we're paying money. I want them here because they really do understand what we're doing and want to be a part of the journey. And that's something we're working through at the moment.
Now, we've also got a question from one of our listeners called Honey Badger for Life. He says, since becoming team principal, do you enjoy being part of silly season, being in the headlines and having a large part of this year's silly season? And is Valterri an option?
So I can only imagine that would be a Daniel fan. So I had the fortune, again, when I was in Mercedes, that actually drivers, young drivers, simulator drivers and race drivers, Toto empowered me with that responsibility. So I've been doing this for quite a few years, and it's the bit I'd say that I'm fairly experienced at. I enjoy it. I enjoy it because it's a massive game of chess, and you're continuously trying to outdo each other in the grand chase for things. And every time you think, right, that's the chessboard, that's lined up, I can see a checkmate move here. Something happens, chessboard vibrates, pieces move all over the place. You're like, right, start again. How do we get this back to where we need to go? And I love it. I frankly do. It's the world is only exposed to the odd line of what's really happening underneath it. Trust me, it's full swan. We're paddling away as quick as we can, and I enjoy it. Valtteri. So Valtteri, I mean, you don't outqualify Lewis unless you are bloody quick in the car. Simple as that. He hasn't dropped off in pace. He's still the same as before. And he's in a team where really they have the slowest car, and yet at times they're putting themselves ahead of 2 or 3 other teams. Valtteri is certainly with that car. I admire that about him. What I admire about him as well is that there's no, excuse the expression, there's no bullshit. He just gets on. What he says is what he means as a result of things. So, and I've had the pleasure of working with him for many years and know him inside and out as an individual. He's definitely a consideration. It's not something we talk openly about, but he's definitely a consideration for the seat. He's not the only consideration, but he's definitely one of the ones that I think still has a place in Formula One.
And he's become an absolute sensation online with his genius social media, various advertising bits and pieces for the partners. It's brilliant to see. Now, we've got a lot of changes coming in Formula One 2026. They'll be here before we know it. How is the team feeling about those regulation changes? And are you approaching them with excitement or a little bit of trepidation?
So excitement first and foremost. Let's do the question in reverse, because we're putting everything into 26 at the moment. We're doing very little towards 24 and 25. In part, that's because we've got to rebuild some structures behind the scenes. It's going to take a while to do that. And it frustrates me. I don't like turning up in 24 or 25 not being where I want us to be, but it's the right thing to be doing for the future. So it's an opportunity. Anything that's an opportunity, that's a large change opportunity, I'm excited by, because it's good for us. The second element of things is probably the largest rule change we've had in the sport. We're changing the power unit quite significantly and the chassis quite significantly at the same time, and it's a lot to take on in one go. It'll be okay. When I look through sort of the details behind it, it's we're going in the right pathway. We obviously had a few discussions because where we are in terms of power unit regs and chassis regs wasn't quite lined up. It felt for teams as though we sort of lost our direction a little bit. And I think we're having very sensible conversations now about how to actually bring that into a good place. The FIA has a difficult job because you're trying to really adjudicate between 10 teams that all have their own reasons for commentary, but actually the teams have been pretty aligned in what works and what doesn't work over the last 4 weeks to make sure we have something that's for the good of the sport. So I think we're on the right pathway. We're not there yet, but we're on the right pathway. But excited because, as I said, ultimately it's opportunity for us, and that's what I'm looking for.
Now, Formula One is obviously a sport that's continually evolving. We've got lots of races now in North America. We've got an extremely long calendar. We've got cost caps and teams now worth billions of dollars. Liberty Media seem to have been generally good for the sport, but now that they've been in place for a little while, how do you view them and the impact that they've had?
There's no doubt about it. If you look at where we were before Liberty took over and where we are today, they've done what they said they would, which is we are a very popular sport and we're growing day by day. More importantly, in markets like America, that is very important for us. I mean, I remember racing in America back in 2005 where we made a hash of it, frankly. And America didn't want anything to do with Formula One, and I didn't blame them. Now look at where we are here. We have 3 of the biggest races. They all take place in America. They are filled to capacity. The viewerships are going into the millions and millions, bigger than any other sporting event. And yet we've got 24 of them a year, not less than that. And so we've made good headway. But it's not just America. It's worldwide in that regard. And what Liberty have been very good at is using mechanisms like Netflix, for example, in order to expand our user base, make sure people understand there's a human element behind it. It's not just about cars going around in circles or drivers. The F1 film, I think, is going to be another huge step for us. Very different audience coming into it. And no doubt about it, Liberty have done a great job. I also think the difference now is teams are investing a lot of money into it, and that includes ourselves. We all want to be successful. We want the sport to rise, and as we rise, all ships rise with it at the same time. So it works well, and there's stability. I think Stefano's doing a brilliant job. I think he's got a team around him that are excellent. Greg Maffei is really on point, and I think that team really understands how to work with teams now. It's not this boxing match every time. It's how do we work together.
Talking of the races in North America, how good is that paddock in Miami now? I was there in year 1, and to be honest, wasn't great. The whole thing was slightly shambolic in terms of like Paddock Club and the hospitality and all that sort of stuff. But I missed year 2, went to year 3, and it was completely different. That's setting a benchmark, isn't it, for paddocks for the teams to have a nice environment to work in?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it went from not one of the worst, that's unfair, but it was a mess in year 1. It was very difficult. It wasn't enjoyable at all. And then you can see step by step across year 2 and then year 3 how it's improved. And as you say, you skip that year 2 bit, but every year has been a step. And it's not over yet. They're still investing to make it better and better. And to answer your question, it was, if I was not in the sport and I was socially arriving, it would be the paddock to go to now, because you can enjoy yourself. You can see everyone. You just walk into the teams area and all the teams are there around you. It feels like a village, feels like a family. It's a good way of organizing it and a good way of structuring it. So definitely, I think, and as I said, it's not over yet. So let's see where they move to next year.
Yeah, they've certainly set a benchmark. And we had Claire Williams on this show a few episodes ago, and she spoke very, very highly of you. She was delighted that you were in charge of the team. I'm sure you've had plenty of communication with her since you took over. She said she felt it was in very safe hands with you at the helm. Have you had much contact with her and the family, and that Williams heritage? How important is that to you as you take the team forward?
I mean, first of all, it's very kind words from her. We were fortunate to have Claire with us in Miami, and Claire and Mark, and I'm really glad that they came along, because I can't imagine how difficult it's been for them, the whole journey, and for them to be a part of things. I wanted to make sure that they felt at home, and they did, and it was great to catch up with Claire. And since I've been here, seen Claire probably 3 times in between, and a few messages. I want to do proud by the family, by her father and by her, and it's important to me. This is still her name and Frank's name above the door, and it's incredibly important to me that we pay service to that, because the history, as I said, is why I'm here as a result of things. And yeah, it's a good relationship in that regard, a very good relationship. I'm so sorry, I forgot the second part of the question.
I guess just the heritage, carrying that forward and making sure that remains part of the fabric of the team. Is that part and parcel of what you're doing every day to try and make sure that heritage stays with the team long term?
The simple answer is yes. I mean, what we have is our heritage. We have more world championships than I won. When I was at Mercedes, we won everything, and yet Williams has more, or as many if you count the 1950 result as well. But that tells you the accolade that's behind it, the heritage that's behind it, and where we are. So answering your question, yes, it's really important to me that we protect it. There's a but to it. That doesn't mean we carry on with the same methods we used 20 years ago. We have to modernize everything. We have to change everything. We have to adapt. And that's really very, very clear to me now. But what I don't want to lose, I don't want this to turn into something that has no feel of what it was before. We are Williams, simple as that.
Now, before we come on to our final 3, I'm keen to understand what you've communicated to all the employees at Williams about what success would look like when you get to the end of this season. What is that you want to achieve when it comes to the end?
So it's nothing about on-track results, interestingly. It's actually about what we've achieved in terms of design office operations, aerodynamics, what we've put in terms of automation, what we've managed to take out from the old and put in from the new. What have we worked through that is not where we wanted it to be and frankly out of date? Those all have to move forward. And one of the adages I use often with the organization is look back just 12 months ago, just reflect on it for a minute, think about where you were, what you were doing, how we did it. Now look at where you are today. And if you don't see a change, come chat to me. But I'm fairly sure all of us see a change in what we're doing. Now forward project. Where do you want to be in 12 months' time? Because that's the point. Everything is continuous change. We're not done. And even when this organization is winning, we're not done. That's not how it works. That rate of change, that continues, because that's how you continue to win. And it's really about that as a journey that we're in at the moment. And it's an awfully quick rate of change. You sort of, just when you feel settled, everything moves around you again. So yeah, that's the best I can tell you at the moment. It's more allowing individuals to reflect on what processes, systems, structures, automation, how fast are we developing, what's the dev rate, what does 26 look like? Those have to move forward substantially. The results on track will follow, but they won't follow in a month. They follow in a far longer lead time than that. And that's okay, but they have to follow.
And we have final 3 questions, which we ask everybody that comes on the show, and they throw up a myriad of different answers. The first one for you, which doesn't necessarily have to be motorsport related, although it can be. What's got you excited at the moment?
I think what's got me excited is some of those new hires are already in the building today. And I spent the last 3 days with them, pretty much. And they're the same as me. They're hyper-competitive individuals that have joined here. They know the challenge, and they want this to be successful. And you can just see their eyes have lit up. They have a challenge in front of them. And there's 2 ways of reacting to that. You can pull away and go, this is enormous. This isn't for me. Or you can go, this is me. This is what I want. I found my place. Let's do this. And it's the latter. And so what's getting me excited is across the organization, we have sprinklings of excellence that bring what is already strong individuals to the right level. And that's what I'm excited by. It will happen perhaps slower than I would have wished, but we're on the right pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to get deep on you here, James. What's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everybody should learn at some point in their life?
You don't know how hard you can push yourself until you 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 effectively create an environment where you have no choice but to push yourself. You have more capability, potential than you imagine, and the only person that can unlock it is not other people around you; it's you. And typically, it happens because you're pushed into it. But actually, those that push themselves into discomfort, push themselves into an environment where they don't know what they can and can't do, and come out the other side successful, are some of the strongest individuals I've had the pleasure of meeting.
Final one for you. What's something nobody really knows about you?
I'm pretty open. That's probably one of my weaknesses. I'm very open at telling you everything that's good and bad. I think one of the things is that I wouldn't. It's not that I'm introverted, but definitely I would much rather, after a long day's work, just sit at home and have quiet. Just be reflective rather than have anything loud or outside with a party. If there's a party going on, I'll show my head for about 20 minutes and I go, that's my job done. I'm out of here. I'm just, it's not that I'm introverted. It's just that's not where I find my center.
Do you find, sorry, one more. Do you find you're able to separate work and personal life? Because if you're anything like me, I'm terrible. I take it home with me and I work all the time. And even if I'm, I try and separate it when I'm at dinner with the kids or school pickup or whatever, but I'm really bad at separating work and pleasure. Have you mastered that art?
No, and I don't think I ever will. I don't believe you can do this job unless you give absolutely everything to it. There's no boundaries. That doesn't exist. When I switch on this morning, it was 5 a.m. And when I switch off tonight, which will be probably 11, this is very much in my life. You can get a hold of me any time of day. Anyone here in work can call me and make sure they tell me what's going on if there's issues. And I think that's vitally important because this isn't about a job. This is about a passion. And the issues with passion is you can't let them lie. You have to be with them all the time.
Very, very good answer and fascinating hearing from you, James. It sounds like what you're building there is heading in a very, very positive direction. It's got me excited. I feel like I want to come and work at Williams now. But it's great that you're making all these hires, making all these changes. Best of luck with Silverstone this weekend. And of course, best of luck with finding that right person to go alongside Alex next year and beyond. But for now, James, thanks so much for joining us on the MotorMouth podcast.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for that.